didn't sleep either. I had a feeling. It's remarkable how the night keeps introducing the same strangers to one another. Or perhaps we're not strangers anymore. Perhaps we're simply just two people who've grown accustomed to borrowing a little silence together. You know, I like that thought. Silence isn't something to own. It's something to borrow. Like moonlight. Or the smell of rain. You see, beautiful things, they rarely belong to anyone. No. Now lately, I've been thinking about memory. Not memories, no, memory. You wouldn't believe this, but they're different. See, memories are individual stories. Memory? Memory is the storyteller. And storytellers, well, they have dreadful habits. You know, they exaggerate. And then they simplify. They forget inconvenient details. Then they swear every word is true. Have you ever noticed? The older a memory becomes, the smoother its edges seem. Arguments, they lose their volume. Laughter, it grows louder. And summer afternoons, they become warmer. And of course, winters become colder. The people out there become kinder or crueler than they ever truly were. It's a fascinating thing. The past, it doesn't change. And yet somehow, it never stays the same. You know, I think a musician said that once. Now I wonder if it's because memories, they don't live in yesterday. No. They live inside us. And we're forever changing. Imagine pouring the same cup of tea into different mugs. The tea, it remains the same. Yet somehow, each cup feels different in your hands. Perhaps memories are like that. The event changes. Only the person remembering it does. I found an old photograph recently. Nothing extraordinary. No. Just a handful of people standing in a garden. Sunlight. Smiles. One of those moments that seemed entirely ordinary until it wasn't. It's funny how ordinary moments, they can become extraordinary only after they've disappeared. Nobody ever says, this will be one of the happiest afternoons of my life. They simply live it. Then years later, they'd give anything to stand there again. Just for 5 minutes. Photographs are peculiar little things. People think they preserve moments. I don't. I think they preserve questions. Who took the picture? What happened afterwards? Who isn't there anymore? What was everybody thinking? Just before the shutter clicked. The image answers none of these questions. It simply waits patiently for someone to wonder. Perhaps that's why old photographs feel strangely alive. Not because they move, but because they move us. There's a difference. I've always believed nostalgia is one of the gentlest liars you'll ever meet. It never lies to hurt you. No. It's only to comfort you. It softens difficult years. It edits awkward conversations. It replaces uncertainty with certainty. Until eventually, you begin missing places that, well, they never existed. Not the way you remember them anyway. And that's not a criticism. I mean, personally, I think it's rather beautiful. The mind isn't trying to deceive us. It's trying to make peace. Children understand something. Adults, they forget. When children tell stories, they don't worry whether every detail is accurate. They worry whether the story feels true. Perhaps memory works the same way. Perhaps it isn't trying to archive your life. No. Perhaps it's just trying to explain it. How can it explain it? It's so complicated. Or maybe not. Tell me, have you ever remembered a conversation and then realized, years later that the other person probably remembers it completely differently? Now, neither of you is lying. You simply carry different versions of the same afternoon. Isn't that remarkable? Almost like parallel universes. Two people can walk the same road, and then they spend the rest of their lives remembering different landscapes. Was it a desert? Was it a forest? Was there a snow-capped mountain? I've started wondering whether forgiveness begins there. The moment you realize your memory, it isn't the only witness. People spend years arguing over who was right. Who said what? Who started it? Who ended it? Perhaps there's a more interesting question. What have our memories been quietly protecting from us? Yesterday's regrets. Maybe that's why regret feels so heavy. Not because of what happened. Because memory keeps polishing it, buffing it up, turning it over, and then finding another angle, another possibility, another ending. As though enough remembering might somehow rewrite yesterday. It won't. Because yesterday, it has remarkable handwriting. Once it's written, it refuses to erase itself. But perhaps that isn't the point. Perhaps the purpose of memory was never to rewrite the past. Perhaps it was simply to teach the present. And how many of you don't want to remember that? How many do you long for it to be the past? You know, people often tell me they wish they could forget. I do understand. Truly, I do. There are memories I'd leave unopened for the rest of my life. But then I wonder, if we erased every painful chapter, would we still recognize the person reading the book? Pain is a difficult teacher. Sometimes an unfair one. But you know what? It teaches all the same. The strange thing is, some of the people who changed us most, they have no idea they did. I mean, look back. What have you got? A teacher who believed in you. A stranger who smiled at exactly the right moment. Someone who held the door. Someone who simply answered the phone. Someone who never knew they interrupted the worst day of your life. That's humbling. Imagine discovering your greatest act of kindness was one you never remembered. Perhaps that should make us gentler. Not because everyone is fighting a battle. We've all heard that. Everybody's up against it, one form or another. Because everyone is quietly becoming someone else's memory. Every conversation, every smile, every goodbye, every silence we're leaving Fingerprints. Fingerprints inside stories we'll never get to read. Anyway, I think that's enough for one sitting. This library, it can wait a little longer. You see, some books, they're best opened slowly. Sleep well. I'll still be here when the night has its questions again. Toodles.